Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, it's closing day at Keeneland, and it's been a pretty exciting meet so far. So let's close it out with taking a look at the late pick five. So let's take a look at the card. The first leg of the late pick five is the sixth race, and it's a maiden special weight for 3-year-olds and up, run on the turf at 1 mile and 3/16. And that's a rather long distance for a maiden, to be sure. So let's take a look at the configuration real quick. And we notice it basically starts right at the top of the stretch. And so you've got a good long run up to the first turn, which, certainly helps position-wise. And maybe the outside posts aren't at quite as much of a disadvantage. So that's something to think about as we take a look at this. Number one is Such Sounds. Phil Bauer really didn't have much of there isn't much of an angle here. This one has improved mildly on synthetic, and probably the switch to turf will mean a better effort. But bottom line is, I just like more others in this race. Like I said, there's really nothing too much to knock. It's just there's others better. So maybe if you like this one, you can put underneath the exotics. Chiromatic, the sire is Caravaggio, so there's some distance there. That shouldn't be a problem. There is the possibility that this one didn't like the Gulfstream turf too much, so perhaps a lot of them didn't like it. They were calling it Durf because it was so hard and dry. So maybe we can expect a little bit better from this one. The last one on synthetic was okay, not great. Whit Beckman doesn't have a lot of stats yet, as he's just been starting out. He did go out and get Florent Giroux for this one, but again, this one's got a couple of things that look pretty good, but I think there's others to like, so we're probably going to look elsewhere. Ragtime Bell is trained by Mac Robertson, is one of my favorites, but 0 for Keeneland so far, and J Love is 0 for the meet as well. The main thing is that just don't see a lot of progression here, a lot of improvement, and that's really going to disqualify with this one in my eyes. The buyers are getting a little better, but you notice that last one was on 5.5 furlongs at turf, not a route. So probably isn't competitive in this race. Camelot Beauty ran pretty much a dud coming out. This one will probably be a lot better on grass. That's true. And it's not a bad move for Kenny McPeak, but this would have to. She would have to have a major quantum leap to be competitive in this race, and I like others a lot more. So this one's a toss. Determined Gold is been a maiden for quite some time. That's really enough for me to toss. I just don't like backing horses that have taken this long to figure out how to win, which this one hasn't figured it out yet. So really, there is a little back class, and you do get Raylu Gutierrez aboard. I imagine they're going to probably try to get this one up on the lead. A lot of times they'll do that when the other way isn't working, so you just put them on the lead and see if you can wire the field. But I don't see that happening in this one, so I'm not going to use. Penumbra's Maker is Fausto Gutierrez. If it wasn't him, I probably would just toss this one outright. But this one has done pretty well. I mean, it's been in the money quite a bit. And if you look, that last race, Haystack is a pretty good one. That was actually a really good field at Keeneland. Love Appeals, Mrs. Astor, Metaphysical, Erna. This one has run against some really good 3-year-old fillies on turf. So it's no surprise it's taken a while for this one to not break the maiden. And so I'm willing to give this one another chance, and I think probably is a pretty good fit here. Probably more likely to be on the exotics end, the exacta, the trifecta, but I think you got to use on the pick 5 ticket. Dixie Supreme. Connor Murphy hasn't fared too well at Keeneland so far. This isn't a bad angle for him. But the fact that he's cold at the meet is really the thing that turns me off. This one was on synthetic and for the first start and didn't do very much running, and it wasn't much of a race coming out of, so that's going to turn me off to this one. Salabia is a real obvious, logical one. Brendan Walsh is a really hot trainer right now, and he's got Tyler Gaffleo, and they've been killing it together. This one, For the Flag, just came out and won an allowance race last week that we handicapped and did so pretty impressively. You see this one is also run against Moira, who we know is pretty darn good in contemporary art. This one's running in some really good class and stayed right with them. Coming second off the layoff, fully expect to move forward, and I like this one as a win candidate. Pure Country comes from that same race, closed in it, but the only thing I kind of noticed about this one is sort of flattened out in the stretch. Didn't close badly, but just really wasn't going to get to the top two. And that was the thing that really kind of turned me off about this one. I just don't see I don't see enough here to think that this one's going to turn it on and close to win. So I like others a little better. I wouldn't blame you if you want to use this one, but I'm also thinking about ticket size, and I don't want to, there's a couple of these races we could go 4, 5, 6 deep if we had to, but we want to have an economical ticket. So this one I'll kind of go either way with, but I would lean towards tossing. Seldom Seen, Second Turf is a good angle for Jonathan Thomas. Again, it's Augustin Stables, Johnny, great connections, but they just haven't done it at Keeneland. They're 0 for 6. And, you look at this one and really didn't do a whole lot on the synthetic last time. So moving to turf would definitely be a plus. This barn is pretty good at getting him on turf, but Arrogate is a mediocre sire for first-time turf, and that coupled with the barn's performance at that meet is going to lend me to toss this one. Isabella Bella, it doesn't look like, just don't see anything here to get excited about. This one isn't Susan Netherwood I don't know a whole lot about, but Commissioner's not known as necessarily being a great turf sire, and the first-to percentage isn't so great. I look at the works, I don't see a lot of speed here, so this one's a logical toss. Towerette is trained by Christophe Clement and Joel Rosario, hot jockey right now. This one didn't do too bad in the first effort on turf. And second start on turf, Christophe Clement's at 30%, so it's a great angle for him. Only issue is the barn's been cold at Keeneland, and he's 0 for 7 so far. That kind of gives me a little bit of a pause. A lot of times, when a barn's cold, that means nobody's going to run well. Still, this one is logical to put on, and you have to, because that's not going to last forever. Christophe Clement's too good. China Horse Club is an excellent outfit. They own Justify, amongst others. So I think this one is a logical use on the ticket. Didn't see much in the way of anything on the also eligibles. You can see Vagaries hasn't been too great in the last couple. Move back to turf is definitely going to help, but you never want to see one that dropped to the maiden claiming level, going back to maiden special weight. So this one wasn't enough to excite me. You same could be said for Aleatory, just isn't really fast enough for this field more than anything else. And Nacho Correas is 0 for 11 for the meet so far. Proud performer. Look at those buyers. That's all you need to see. Just isn't good enough. And Sri Lanka, this is one. Now, there would have to be a lot of defections. That's true. But if Sri Lanka draws in, this is one you have to have. Will never forget handicapping back in January, I think it was, looking at Alpha Bella. And I believe it was the Pegasus World Cup card. And I was looking at Alpha Bella's first start, and I saw Sri Lanka. This one closes like a freight train. Big close. You can't deny that. This one is, especially being by Brendan Walsh, if this one gets in the grace, you absolutely have to use and will be a total win ticket candidate. So just keep that in mind. It probably ain't going to happen, but this is one you see Sri Lanka in the future anywhere. Maybe at Churchill if they get him in for the coming up. This is one you want to think about for sure. The second leg of the Pick 5 at Keeneland is the 7th race, and it's another maiden special weight for 3-year-olds. And this one is on the dirt at about 7 furlongs. And so we look at the configuration. I always want to remember that the post to the inside, because it's run out of a chute, they're at a little bit of a disadvantage, and they can get shuffled back unless they're quick out of the gate. So that we want to always think about that. Number 1 is Run for Reagan. This one looks to be improving a little bit. Obviously, the jump from synthetic to dirt was a good thing, but did drop to a maiden for 100,000. Obviously, it's 100,000, so it's not too far removed from maiden special weight. This one's not doing bad. I was on his way, but I just have others in this field that I think are more talented that I like better right now, and that's really it. Dark Vector is going route to sprint, which we always like, and synthetic to dirt. So there's two pretty good angles happening here. Luis Saez is aboard, who's the hot jockey right now, and he already knows this one because they ran in the last race. This one likes to be up near the engine, and cutting back should be a help. George Weaver is a good trainer, and I think this one is a definite contender. The buyers at 2 turns were competitive for this race, so 1 turn, this one, it shouldn't be a problem at all. And being on the inside, should be able to get up to the lead where he wants to go. And there is the possibility this one can wire, so like Dark Vector. Number 3 is Castle Warden. His debut race was awful green. He was all over the place in the stretch, much like Charge It, as we saw in the Oakland handicap, unfortunately. I was really, just all over the place, drifting in and out, and really green, but definitely showed some talent. In closing, showed a pretty good turn of foot, and Brad Cox is awesome with second-time starters. He's got Flo Giroux, one of his A riders on him, and he's hot at this meet. Really logical to use. Castle Warden, we definitely will use. Palette Comet is trained by Ben Colebrook, and this one I didn't see a whole lot to get really excited about. Munnings is a pretty good first-time starter, sire, but the tab looks, there's some gaps in it, and it looks a little light for me. And I'm just, Ben Colebrook's not known as being a great first-time starter trainer, so I'm going to wait one with this one. Bad Boy Frank, Ian Wilkes, Hot Barn, and got Julian Leperoux aboard, who's normally an A rider for him, but he hasn't been doing real well at this meet. This last race, Bad Boy Frank broke poorly, and it was only a five horse race, but started out of the gate pretty poorly, but closed very well. Made up a lot of ground, and enough to tell you that you should expect better from this one on the second start. So it's not necessarily a great angle for Ian Wilkes, but again, his barn is hot, and I think this one fits here. So I think this one is a definite use. Should break better. I mean, Ian Wilkes, he'll school him to get rid of that. Loyal Company, I'm kind of on the fence with this one. Brendan Walsh trains. It's a hot barn. Tyler Gaffleone, jockey trainer combination. They've been terrific. The class rating for the last race was not the greatest. That's really what kind of puts me on the fence with this one. It was on synthetic, and this one did okay. Closed from pretty wide, so I mean that moving to dirt, I think will be a good thing. One big advantage I like about this horse is being by Frosted. He is becoming one of my favorite sires. His get always seemed to fight. They just always compete regardless of what the situation is, regardless of the class level. They always put up a fight, so you got to love that. The last few works have been pretty good. They've all been stamina building at 5 furlongs and pretty solid. So there's some things to like here for sure. I'll just leave it up to you, ticket size, whether or not you want to use this one. But I don't see any reason not to. There's a couple that I think have a little better chance, but I think this one is, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, mainly because of the hot barn more than anything else. Surface to Air has been running in fantastic company. You look, the first race, Lugan Knight. The second race, Corona Bolt Communication Memo. The third race, Transect. Those all came back to win, and those are all key races. So this one has been in some really good company. But here's the problem. Hasn't been really has been mildly competitive in any of those fields. Now, the last one we can forgive a little bit because it went to synthetic and perhaps just didn't like it. You can see by the running lines they were markedly different than the first two starts. So chances are this horse just didn't like it. But more than anything else, I mean, there's been a freshening here. So this one, probably will be pretty good to go here. It's really a case of the fact that this one hasn't been more of a factor in the races that leads me to probably pass. You're getting 15-1. That's some good value here, and if the horse runs in good competition but can't factor in it, well, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. That's one way to look at it. The other way is they've been running in good competition, so if this is a step down, they should be more competitive. I tend to believe the former rather than the latter in this case. But this is one that, at 15-1, I wouldn't talk you out of putting this one on the ticket. Get Road, I think, is where we're going to get some nice value. Paulo Lobo is a good trainer, and he is at 38% with 3-year-old firsters. 3 out of 8. So that's pretty darn good. He's also, the sire, Good Magic, is 29% with 3-year-old first-time starters. That's a recipe for success for me. The tab looks pretty good, and I don't see any reason why this one wouldn't be a factor in this race, and you're getting a really nice price of 15-1. So I think this one is a must-use. It's a pretty good field, that's true, but that's if you're going to get this is the kind of race you want some value, and this is a great place to find it. So I really like Ghent Road in this spot. Mo Hope is another one that's had some pretty good competition, ran against Cagliostro, who we saw on the Derby Trail for a little while, and finished second. It was at 2 turns as well, and now so you're looking at a cutback here. It's not a great angle for Paul McGee, for a horse to come off a decent-sized layoff for 3-year-olds, and so that's a little bit of a concern. It's just not something he likes to do. He is a hot barn right now, 2 out of 5, for sure. And for 3-year-olds, I might add, if you look at the trainer stats, it's for 6180 looks pretty good, but for 3-year-olds, it's not very good. So I should make that distinction. The work tab looks pretty decent. I don't like the speed numbers look a little light for this race. You can go either way with this one. Again, at 20-1, that's not a bad price, but I think this one's probably more likely for underneath, given the comp levels that he's at in this field. Gold Ghost is pretty logical. Wesley Ward, done, right? I mean, at Keeneland, you can't do much better than that. He just seems to be winning everything right now. This one is going from synthetic to dirt, and just fired a bullet in the last work at Keeneland. So that tells me all systems are go. It's a great angle, as we know, moving from all weather to dirt. Just really no reason not to keep this one in the mix. So the 10 is a logical to be used. The 11 just isn't good enough. Just haven't seen anything, and the last race in particular was a real stinker. And moving to dirt probably will help a little bit, but not in this field, not enough to be competitive. I will say this, though. The work tab is pretty good. If you want to throw this one on at some value as just sort of a long shot play, maybe. But I just don't see enough to get me real excited about this one. And Doug O'Neill is 0 for Keeneland as well. Running for Joy, Michael Tomlinson is 0% with first-time starters. He does not do first-time starters. And so this one's a first-time starter, and that's pretty much enough for me to toss. Work tab looks okay. I don't like the gap between the March and April works, and you do have a couple of significant gaps. So more than likely, I think this one's going to be running into shape. So I wouldn't use, and I would toss. The also eligibles, Citizen, that doesn't match up with these in any regard. And I think that's enough for me, just isn't fast enough. And 14, Demetrius. This one, California Chrome 7% with first-time starters. And the tab looks okay, but this trade, I just don't know enough, and I don't think this one, it doesn't look like this one would really be a factor in this race, so I probably wouldn't include. And it's probably likely not going to get in anyway. The third leg of the closing day pick 5 at Keeneland is the 8th. It's the Grade 3 Bewitch Stks. It's run on the turf at 1.5 miles for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And as we know, in 1.5 mile races at Keeneland on the turf, it starts on the backstretch, and so there'll be 3 turns. So you want to take note of that. These races tend to be run on the front end, but lately we've seen closers get them, so it's a pretty wide open affair. Let's see what we got here. Number 1 is Chateau Rouge. This one looks like a field filler to me more than anything else. I can't see this one factoring in this race whatsoever. Just doesn't have the speed numbers, doesn't look to be terribly competitive, and has been stuck in the N1X level for quite some time. Really, just other than the fact that this one's by Kitten's Joy, really, I can't see any reason this one would be involved in this race. Temple City Terror is Brennan Walsh and Hot Barn, can't get past that. Jose Ortiz in the irons, which is good as well. This one in the Hillsborough did okay last time. I think this one likes longer distances, so this is definitely a good switch up to. 1.5 miles is exactly where this one wants to be. Has been very competitive in the Grade 3 company, and I don't see any reason why this one wouldn't be as well, having had the tune-up at Tampa. So I think that being up near the front end might be a little bit better, but this one certainly could do that, and I think this one's a logical win candidate. Ensemble is another Brendan Walsh charge, and this one is not as exciting as the number 2. You do get Tyler Gaffalione aboard, which is kind of interesting. That he would. Tyler Gaffalione's been Walsh's A rider for this meet in particular. The very one wasn't a whole lot to write home about, but again, that Gulfstream turf or DURF, as they were calling it, doesn't always agree with every horse. So if you think about that, then maybe you can reevaluate that last start and say, well, maybe she just didn't like the surface. Had looked to be moving in the right direction prior to that, particularly at Gulfstream at 1.5 miles on this and coming off the turf. Got a 10-length victory, so that showed quite a bit, and did it against Bravo Kitten, who is in a bad allowance horse. You see also this one finished 3rd behind Personal Best, who's in this race today, who we're pretty high on. So there's some things to like here. I don't know if we could really say that this one could be competitive with the very best in this race, but I would think this one probably would be a more of an exotics type of play underneath at 20-1. If you get that, that's pretty good value. So we look at Warlike Goddess here, and number 4, and pretty logical favorite. This one, the last, trained by Bill Mott, Joel Rosario, great connections. The only thing that we can say is that this is the first start following the Breeders' Cup. And so it's been a rather long layoff, and 1.5 miles is a distance that this one relishes. That's true. It's 5 for 6 at it, so you got to believe that won't be a problem. The only thing is that you have to say is that if you're going to beat Warlike Goddess, this might be the time to do it with a long layoff. She's run well off the bench before, so I don't see that being a problem. But she is 6 years old now, and so that's just a little thing to think about. I think this is an obvious use. It's, You have to. Two of them just towers over this field in a lot of ways. But just a little in the back of your mind, this might be the day you might be able to beat her. Personal best is trained by Shug McGahee, and this horse I've liked since I've been watching. The first was the La Provoyante, and there were others favored in that race, and more people were more talking about it, and this one just kind of blew them away. Followed that up at Gulfstream and the Orchid with a pretty good effort. An Amazing Grace is a really nice filly, mare, whatever. Really nice filly. So it's no sin whatsoever finishing second to her. And you see, in doing so, she got her career high buyer. So everything is heading in the right direction for this one. If it wasn't for Warlike Goddess, she would be an obvious win candidate and the favorite in this race. And I absolutely am going to use. And I hope, being on the upswing like she is, that you'll get a little bit better price that she can defeat Warlike Goddess, although that is a tall order. Sopran Basile, or I believe that's how you pronounce it. Grand Motion is not so great with the first-time North American starters lately. Luis Saez is aboard, but this one was racing in Italy and around right-handed tracks, I might add. But it doesn't show me a whole lot on the record here, and you know that coupled with the fact I think Motion will probably take his time with this one. This is just I think is more seems like a field filler to me, so I would pass on this one as well. So basically, what you've got more than anything else is a 2-horse race, in my opinion. Warlike Goddess or Personal Best. Temple City Terror is also a factor, but I tend to like Personal Best as having a little more upside in dealing with somebody like Warlike Goddess. The fourth leg of the late pick 5 is the 9th race at Keeneland, and it's a starter allowance for 4-year-olds and up on the dirt at 7 furlongs. And again, want to remember that it's coming out of the chute, so horses on the inside got to hustle a little bit to get up there because otherwise they run the risk of being shuffled back. Number 1 is A La Carte. It's trained by Bill Mott. Got a Rod Ortiz aboard. What's not to like there? This one is, coming off a pretty good win at extremely short odds. This was one we had harkened back to earlier with Mr. Peaks when we talked about him for the Florida Derby. Mr. Peaks gave A La Carte all that he could handle all the way around the track here until A La Carte just the class took over and he drew off. On the surface, you look at this one and go, well, it's pretty obvious. But here's something to think about. This one is run at the same class level for the last 2 starts. The class level for the race was the same, and it wasn't the highest class level for maidens. So this one necessarily isn't improving, and you can see that because the buyers had a little bit of a dip. It's no big deal. The horse still has talent. But maybe not quite as short a price as it doesn't really justify it. So I think you got to use this one on the pick 5 ticket. But I'm not so sure that this one is quite as much of a cinch as it looks. Number 2 is Debate. Tom Drury's a good trainer, Claiborne Farm. I mean, great connections. Johnny V in the saddle. This one has been running at a little bit better class level than A La Carte. It's coming from a mile trip and moving back to a sprint. So you've got route to sprint to think about. And Tom Drury's pretty good at 29%, 64% with a 61 to 180 layoff in this spot. Problem is he's 1 for 11 in allowance races at Keeneland. And the speed figures are a little light by comparison. So this one is, there's some things to like. I would consider this one to be more of an exotics play, though. Triple Elvis should be probably a bit of a pace factor, I would think. Took some time to break the maiden and really hasn't factored very much in allowance races at the N1X level, particularly at Turfway. The last couple weren't very good. It's not a big surprise, though, because synthetic, and if you're an early runner, sometimes it's not so hot. Moving back to a surface that he likes, but the buyers don't match up, and I just pace presence only. Overbore is trained by Wesley Ward and Joel Rosario aboard, so that's a pretty hot combination right now. The big thing with this one more than anything else is this one does not run well off the bench. And if you look, you go back to that August 13th race at Saratoga. Granted, it was on turf, but didn't factor very well. At Keeneland last April, in basically the same race, didn't factor very well at all. And, had a second at Keeneland in October of 21, but finished pretty far back to Tejano Twist. No surprise there. So got some big questions about this one coming off the bench. Now, is debuting at 4 years old, so there is the possibility of improvement. And you do have a hot barn here. So this is one that perhaps you want to consider. I'm just a little leery of coming off the bench like that. And this one doesn't look like it has the real big will to win. And that's kind of the other thing. Incidentally, that last race at Saratoga was at 5.5 furlongs, and it was a 5-horse race. And so there wasn't any traffic issues, nothing really to worry about. This was free running all the way, and this one saved all the ground on the rail. So it wasn't it's a little illusory. It was a pretty good second, but I don't know. There were tougher spots to get a second, let's say. Number 5 is OP Firecracker. This one really is has been running on roots primarily, so this is a big turn back to 7 furlongs from a 1.25 miles in the last one. So you could probably expect a little bit better effort. Robert Medina is 0 for the 61 to 180 day angle, so I don't expect this one to be firing real well coming off of a layoff. There's a little bit of a couple gaps in the tab, and has only had 4 works. I generally like to see 5 coming off a long layoff, so I think this one will be a little short as well. Bourbon Heist is very interesting. Coming Ewells, hot barn. Novice, the jockey, don't know a whole lot about, but you are getting a significant weight allowance. You're getting 10 pounds off, so I think that is a really a nice factor, but it's not the only one that makes this one interesting. The big thing is this one is the last 3 starts has been improving steadily on synthetic surface, and the class level this one is running at has been higher than the class level that of the race, and that has been increasing. So those are that's a really good angle. That's a really good thing you want to see. Moving back to dirt is also going to be a good thing for this one. You look at the back class. Yes, this one took a while to break the maiden. That is true. But look who he was running against. Elite Power, Skelly, Strobe. Those are all top quality sprinters. And so this one has the class level this one's been running at has been pretty good. And you see, this one was completely competitive in those against those better horses. So I really like this one's chances here, and particularly since this one's been running at higher class levels. That's the thing that really excites me, and I think you're getting a square price at 4 to 1. And I consider that a la carte to be a little bit of a paper tiger because of those class questions that I have. So I think you maybe get a soft favorite here, and this is one that I think can give you some value and take the race down too. It would be an add to a nice score on the pick 5 ticket. Number 7 is War Room. Really, very simply, just broke the maiden first against winners, and the buyers are too light. This one just probably isn't good enough. It would need a major leap forward in order to factor in this race. The final leg of the closing pick 5 is the 10th race, and it's an N1X allowance for 3-year-olds run on the turf at a mile. Number 1 is Mo Visitor. Really hasn't shown very much, particularly in the Transylvania, was up the track, and doesn't really look at the buyers were really light prior to that. So there's been a little bit of improvement, but I think would have to take another step right here to move forward, and that last one wasn't a very good indication, so I think we'll let this one go. Number 2 is Midnight Rising. This is a pretty good scenario, but the thing is, the Russiaway came back a little light class-wise, and I don't. This one looks to be plateauing. I think we need another move forward in order to factor here. So there's some things to like, but I think I'm going to look elsewhere. Number 3 is Turf King, Chad Brown, Tyler Gaffleone. Pretty logical to look at this one. You see Chad's having a great meet. That inaugural maiden race was a pretty impressive bid, and it was a pretty salty field as well. Particularly when you consider Clever Thought there, just came back to win as a really short-priced favorite. So I like this one, and it's, I think, a logical win candidate. In addition, Kingman, the sire, is 20% with first-time turfers. So I think this one is pretty logical. Tiger Paw, that last race was pretty abysmal and wasn't the greatest of fields at a sprint. This would be stretching out. This one is yet to do that. Was okay in Europe, carried some weight, which, as you know, that's something I always look for. So they thought fairly highly of this one, but really hasn't done it here, and I'll wait to see one. I'm not going to use this one. More Than Looks, trained by Cherie DeVoe. It's a third career start. Got Joel Rosario aboard like he did in the last one. And this one had a big close in the last race on synthetic to get up in the late stages. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is the cutback in distance might make it prohibitive for this one to get up because may have a little too much to do late. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to use this one at 10-1, but I think I like others in this spot. This one's okay with turf. First time more than ready, isn't bad. But like I say, that's really the only question I have is just I think the cutback in distance might be difficult for this one to factor. Laver, this looks to me like a kind of a desperation move to find somewhere for this one to fit. Getting back on the turf, the dirt efforts really haven't been terribly successful. You see that he raced in that Mucho Macho Man, which, aside from Lord Miles, has really come out to be a negative key race. Nobody's really done any running from that. And you see he went in the Sam F. Davis and didn't factor in that race at all. So coming off the layoff isn't bad for Rusty Arnold. He's having a good meet, but Bernardini is 4% with first-time turfers. So I'm going to wait on this one. Dunedin got Luis Saez aboard, and second off the layoff isn't a bad angle for Kelsey Danner. It's okay. Nothing spectacular. The Cutler Bay was a fairly decent effort. The only thing is that there were others blowing by him to close this one out, and look kind of flattening out in the stretch. So I'm not sure that there's going to be improvement in this start, and 5-1 might be a little short for this one. So I'm looking elsewhere. Fearless Soldier. I read Ortiz and Todd Pletcher would normally be awesome, but you look, they're both having a subpar meet. Pletcher in particular, it looks like he really doesn't gear up for Keeneland, as he does for Gulfstream and Saratoga. So maybe this one's kind of on the JV for him, if you will. The connections are all really good, but the last maiden win wasn't really an improvement over the prior effort. You see the buyers were the same. I'll expect this one to do a little better here, but there's some classier horses in this race, and I look them to be more of a factor than this one. Itzos is got a really solid dam. A lot of Kim produces winners, and second, 2- and 3-year-olds in particular do very well. She does pretty well with turf roots, about 12%. The first time stats for Bolta Oro, he's 14% first off on turf. And there's a little bit of class relief, although, as I mentioned, that Rushaway didn't really come back so great a race. And that one, and Itzos really didn't factor in it terribly much. So is it possible this one can improve going to turf? Sure. And 20-1 isn't a bad price if you're so inclined. You might give this one a shot. He did go for $1.4 million at the phasing tipped in August sale, so there's obviously some expectations that he's a looker. But right now, I haven't really seen that anything to tell me that this one's going to really bound forward to take this one down over some of the others. Moonstrike, it just isn't good enough. That bottom line, I don't see anything really to like about this horse. It is an easy toss. Wico, however you pronounce it. Wesley Ward, what need more be said? Red hot barn. Roots, although, roots aren't the greatest thing for Wesley Ward. He does most of his damage in sprints. And that's kind of where I think of them. I get more excited when I see them in a turf sprint. However, this one did win the maiden last time and did it pretty well on the front end. There's not a lot of early speed here, and at a mile, it's very possible that this one could wire the field. You can't go against this barn right now. You just can't. They're too hot. So I think this is an obvious include on your tickets. Good Heart is now, trained by Brendan Walsh, and that's another hot barn, and second off the layoff. It is okay, but this one really hasn't factored very much, and that Battaglia turned out to be not really the greatest of races, and this one didn't factor in it at all. Back to turf is probably a better thing for this one, perhaps, but I don't see any reason to use this one now. The also eligible is a spy novel, Safi Joseph, training, and this one didn't do terribly well in the Cutler Bay last time, and if you're going to take a horse in that race, it'd probably be Dunedin. Not too bad on the turf, it did win an optional claimer at Gulfstream, but you're getting Safi Joseph away from Gulfstream at other tracks. He's not quite as good, so this one I think is a little challenge to be in this spot. So if he does draw in, I wouldn't use. So here's what our ticket looks like. In the first race, we're going to spread a little bit with 6, 8, 12, and I parenthesize 16 Sri Lanka. If that one draws in, you absolutely have to use. But obviously, being the 16 hole, that's a little bit remote. The seventh race, I think, is a total spread race. 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 10. I think it's just a wide open race, and it's hard not to limit our options. In the eighth race, we're going to use Warlike Goddess, and we're also going to use Personal Best. I kind of like Personal Best in this spot. I think she's trending upward, and Warlike Goddess is coming off a long layoff, so I think we want to protect ourselves by using both. Temple City Terror, I don't think is as good a bet as the 5 as an extra with Warlike Goddess, and that's why I excluded, plus ticket size. The ninth race, I think a la carte is a bit of a paper tiger, so I like the 6 probably better, but because of the numbers and because it's Bill Mott, you kind of got to keep her on the race. In the race. And in the 10th race, we're going to use Turf King, number 3, and we're also going to use Wico, the Wesley Ward, and I think that'll give us 2 solid options to take this one down. It is a fairly tough race, though, but we want to keep our ticket size as small as we can. We're spread a little bit. It's the last closing race, so meets pick 5, so let's see if we can take it down. So that's 3 times 6 is 18, times 2 is 36, times 2 is 72, times 2 is 144. With a 50-cent base, that's a $72 ticket, and I think that gives us a pretty good shot to take it down. So that's the closing day pick 5 ticket. It's fairly contentious the first couple of races, so we've spread to give us maximum opportunity. I think the next couple of races, we do have some vulnerable favorites. So we use some defensive horses, and hopefully we can get home at least one of those overlays to provide a good value. So if we can get through those first couple of legs, we might have a shot at having some decent value and a decent payout. We will continue with our Elements of Handicapping series. I hope you've enjoyed the first part. The second part, Class, will be coming very soon, and then we'll follow that up with Speed and Pace, and then we'll put it all together to come up with some final decisions on the Derby contenders. And so I hope you look forward to that. If you do like what you see here, of course, as always, please like and subscribe. And I thank you for stopping by. Love the way this community is growing. And keep those comments coming. I always love to hear from you guys, and I really appreciate your support. So best of luck with your wagering, and hope our insights help you a little bit and help you can make some money from it. And I'll talk to you soon. And until then, be well.